Welcome to a very special episode of Review Me Please.
Hey, wait, Michael, why aren't you wearing any pants?
You said we were going to the beach house today.
No, what I said is we're going to be reviewing Beach House today.
Reviewing...
Yeah, remember Devotion, the album?
Oh. I've made a mistake.
Your boat looks good today, though.
Welcome to another episode of Review Me Please. I've found my pants, and my name is Michael.
And I'm PJ, and we're here to review a record for you.
So today we've got Beach House, Devotion. Kind of an indie darling, as I understand it. I had never heard Beach House before I got this album, PJ. Had you?
I hadn't heard this album until you got it either.
Wow. So we're both going into Beach House with fresh eyes, and this is probably the album to start with because, as Vinyl Me Please said, this is kind of the album where they found their sound.
As far as I could tell from their catalog, looking it up, this was like their second album, which means like it's their sophomore album. It's kind of strange to have a band who, in their sophomore album, really hits it, you know? Most of the time they figure it out in the first one, and then there's not a huge change in the second one. The second one is usually doomed to flop, is what I hear.
It's interesting when you look at the history of a lot of bands like that too, because like there's Weezer, for example. Everyone loves the Blue Album, but then there are some people who swear that Pinkerton is like the absolute peak of what they did. But that was, to a lot of people, their sophomore slump. So I guess it depends on your tastes, because what a lot of people feel is that that second album is always a big risk. You know, it's like they're either gonna replicate the success of their first album, or they're gonna veer off wildly in some other direction.
Right.
And sometimes, I guess, a band like Beach House, for example, finds the sound that will define their career when they veer off. So maybe the thing that they thought they were gonna do isn't what they were gonna do at all. Kind of like when you find sand at your shorts at the beach house. You're just lucky I'm wearing shorts.
I'm feeling blessed that you're wearing shorts right now.
Pants.
Just a prison for your legs.
It's true. Leg shirts. So speaking of the sound of this album, what is your overall impression of Devotion?
Well, this album is very dreamy, very indie sounding. There's a lot of heavy effects on the vocals and also a very breathy style, so you really have to pay attention to get any of the lyrics. You can't really be doing stuff around the place and really have any of it stick to you. You have to be kind of like actively listening, which is, you know, not bad. It's just that's kind of the state of affairs when you're walking into this. What about you, Michael? What did you think of the sound of this album?
You know, I have to agree with you that there's sort of a retro feel to it, that there's kind of this 70s, 60s vibe almost I got, with those heavily processed vocals and the dreamy quality of it. I got a little bit of like a Nico with the Velvet Underground kind of feel from the vocals. There's this breathy style, kind of a chanteuse kind of thing, but it's also got a modern sensibility. It sounds like a melding, again, of retro and modern, kind of in the way that one of the previous albums we looked at, Tennis, reminded me of, where it's got these kind of like this Mellotron thing, it's got this 70s kind of vibe to it, but they're also using modern sounds and they're using modern production techniques.
You know, what was really interesting to me too is how like there's a haunting, like ethereal aspect to the sound of this album, but not in a spooky way, more in like a nostalgic way, more like memories that you can't get out of your head. Like you took a beach house vacation, but it was through a very like distorted, dreamy lens.
Absolutely. I love the cover of Some Things Last a Long Time, which is a Daniel Johnston song. And you know, the original is this really simple, really folksy sort of pining kind of feel to it. It's a really powerful, simple feel, and they captured that really interestingly because they added that dreamlike lens to it. So I got the feeling of kind of this nostalgic longing, but through the lens of a dream, almost like you were feeling those things subconsciously or unconsciously.
Did you like any of the other songs on the album?
I did. I think my favorite, so it's split into 2 LPs. So there are 4 sides, and I think side 3 was actually my favorite, and that was the one where the cover appears, but it was also All the Years and Astronaut. I can't tell you why exactly, which, you know, makes me a terrible reviewer, but I will say that I felt like that's when the album peaked for me, that all of the elements that they were bringing to the table, the sort of dream pop kind of feel, the sort of quirky indie feel to certain things. Like there was a Hawaiian style guitar in it at one point. There was I think a mellotron in it at one point. They have all these disparate elements, and I felt like that's where everything kind of came together. I really liked the song Astronaut. So how about you, PJ? Was there any particular song that really stuck with you?
You know, of all the songs, I think the song Gila stuck out the most.
You son of a bitch! Say it again! Say it again! Say it! Say it!
So Michael, how do you think this whole package comes together?
Well, it's interesting. So we talked a little bit about this. The art is pretty unique for this particular album in that, like you said, the album's very warm feeling. Mm-hmm. This is kind of cold or cool. There's a lot of cool colors in here. It's got a mysterious sort of, I don't know, I get almost a sinister intent from it, which I don't get from listening to the album. So it's an interesting piece to go with this. I don't know. How would you interpret this?
You know, it's either a purposeful juxtaposition of the album and the album artwork, which, you know, I think of like warm lights and like, you know, dreamy qualities, but it's completely different.
So we talked a little bit about the juxtaposition of the art. I thought the cocktail actually kind of fit it. Fairly simple for a cocktail. A lot of times these guys send us recipes that are pretty complex, or at least use really different spirits. This was a nice, simple, straightforward kind of cocktail. What did you think?
Yeah, it's more of a classic cocktail where it's made up of gin and then some kind of fruit juice, especially citrus juice. So for me, I felt like it really worked with the album, and the oddball in this whole thing is kind of the artwork.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, and it's one of the first gin cocktails in a long time I've enjoyed, and I think the citrus kind of put out the forest fire in my mouth, which I always appreciate. All right, PJ, it's time for our review. So, on a scale from Mountain Cabin to Little House on the Prairie, where would you put Beach House?
Okay. Between those two, I'd have to lean more toward Mountain Cabin.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's the perfect fit for this, but I'd say like on the scale, it's like 3/4 of the way toward Mountain Cabin.
Okay.
And this is because Little House on the Prairie, it's a little more wholesome, it's a little more flatland. This doesn't feel like that, especially if this mountain is near a beach.
Oh.
I would say it's a little closer. Even though it has this interesting nostalgic sway and this kind of beauty to it, I think there maybe is a darker undertone that, you know, I'm missing right now. So I think there's more chance for that to happen on, say, a cabin in the mountains, in the woods, I'm assuming.
But maybe the complexities will sort of reveal themselves over repeated listenings. It sounds like these peaks and valleys are hard to discern, especially when you're on the mountain.
I mean, full disclosure, like there are some times I had to strain to understand the lyrics, which again is not bad. It just means, you know, with the time we've had to take to really dig into this album, like I've only caught maybe half of all the lyrics. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of like darker thing going on in here that I just don't know about. And maybe if I read the lyric sheet, like I keep bitching about all the time, instead of being a complete hypocrite,
guess what?
it'd be okay.
They included a lyric sheet.
I know.
Just for you.
Just for me.
They heard your constant complaints.
And what did I do? I didn't read it.
Oh, rude.
That's what you get.
Rude.
I am the worst.
You know, the only thing that scares me about your review is that mountains next to beaches tend to be cliffs.
Yes.
That's terrifying.
All right, Michael.
Yeah.
On a scale from sand in your shorts to a hand in the pudding, how would you rate this album?
Wow. Well, let's see. It's hard to tell which of those is a qualitative end of the scale. So I'm going to say, on a scale from sand in my shorts to my hand in the pudding, I feel like there's a little bit of sand in my shorts, but it's just enough to give me a little texture. It hasn't gotten all up in my cracks yet, so, you know, it's not unpleasant yet. It's just a little bit like, oh yeah, no, I'm on a beach. There's some roughness going on here. There's some edginess a little bit, but it's still a very pleasant experience. Like I'm feeling the sand, you know, like it's kind of like, you know, I want to just take off my shorts and just roll around in the sand naked. But at the same time, I'm hungry for pudding. And I'm kind of hungry for more Beach House. This album actually warmed up on me a little bit. Like when I first put it on, we listened to it twice now, and the first time, it took me a little while to warm up to it. And I had the same experience this time where the first couple songs were interesting enough, but it was just sort of fading into the background for me. And then as I went on, Well, the proof was in the pudding. And the album kind of peaked for me near the middle, and I went, oh yeah, no, okay, now I'm into this.
I have to agree too. This album, at first, I was like, I'm not sure if it's gonna be for me or not. And then as it went through and we, got to side 3, and like, all right, yeah, no, I think this is really warming up to me. I can see some great qualities to this music, or even in my head, I feel like there's some elements that'd be good in, like, for cinematic moments.
I think that's one of the keys to this album too, for me, and you kind of hit on it there, is I think this album needs to be listened to as an album.
Right.
Nothing stuck out to me as a single. It's not that kind of music. It's not that kind of band. This is the kind of thing where you want to listen to the entirety at once. They put an album together for a reason. The takeaway here is you don't want sand in your pudding. Well, that does it for another episode of Review Me Please. I've been Michael.
And I've been PJ. Thanks for watching, and please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
If we get enough subscribers, we'll be monetized, and then I can afford pants.
Please, he needs pants badly.
And until next time, keep it spinning.